your reviews.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Voice in the Pen podcast. Emily and I are super thrilled today to be welcoming Linda Draper to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Hey, this is a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think we all met really as a result of the Voice in the Pen. At least I know I met you as a result of the Voice in the Pen. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, I think you reached out to us on our Voice in the Pen page, which is really cool. The Instagram gets around to different artists, and that's how we met you.
Yeah, it was great. I moved here about a year ago. I'm in Surf City now, and I remember just kind of checking out like, where are there opportunities for singer-songwriters to present their original material in this area? Because there's a lot of opportunities, and I just didn't know where they were. And on a Facebook music community page was how I heard about you guys originally. And then I saw on Instagram, and I was like, this just looks so cool. What an awesome collective. And me and my husband came to check out a show, and just instant fans. It's just such a cool thing you guys are doing.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wouldn't be as cool as it is without people like you. So thank you for coming and sharing your music with us and sharing your thoughts and ideas today.
Thank you.
What on earth possessed you? And I like to ask this, especially of guitar players, but like, what on earth possessed you to want to pick up a guitar and make original music? You know, why did you do that?
That's a good question. I can remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
I was maybe around 13 or so, and my mom had an old nylon string guitar that was just lying around. She used to play guitar. That's how she met my dad in college. And my father also is a classical guitarist till this day. And so I grew up with music always in my family. I was always, my dad was my first musical influence. And so really, I just was curious. It was just the curiosity to see what I could do. I was also at that age where I felt misunderstood, and this was a great outlet for me to convey what I was really thinking and feeling.
Sure.
And
you were writing songs then at 13? You started writing songs?
I started writing songs shortly thereafter. I think I was around, first I learned to play a couple of songs.
Yeah. the
Just
the
to
chords,
get,
right?
yeah.
G, C, D, and all the
just
things.
the basics.
Yeah.
And, you really don't need a whole lot to get started.
No.
And I learned a very simple classical piece that my dad taught me. And then I think the second song I learned was Closer to Fine by the Indigo Girls, which is like, I think, the most played song by so many people, and for good reason. It's one of those songs that has all the elements. It has the awesome chords that aren't too hard for beginner guitar players, no scary bar chords, and the lyrics just really drew me in. And so after learning just a couple of songs, I think another like top 5 song that I learned was Leaving Las Vegas, Sheryl Crow. And it was around then that I got, turned on to all this other stuff going on by, Suzanne Vega, another early influence. But I was around 15, 16 when I started really writing down my own songs and being inspired to write more songs.
And when did you first record?
I first recorded, we did recording projects in college a lot. So we did, because I went to school for music.
Okay.
And so we had studio space available. And that was where kind of I got acclimated to recording. But I didn't really put out my first album until 2001.
Okay.
And that was, by that time, I'd moved to the city, and I was getting inspired by this whole new group of amazing songwriters in the scene that was being fostered around the time. In the Lower East Village, called the anti-folk scene, which is interesting because I don't know, I'm not really considering myself to be for or against much of anything. I'm kind of ambiguous, and but there was kind of this so this ongoing feeling I had, I think more in my 20s, maybe it was like my second adolescence of feeling like I didn't fit in and I didn't belong anywhere. And for whatever reason, it was this group of people and this community that really embraced me and let me do what I do. And I was just so inspired by the output that was coming out from that scene.
And was it like definitively not folk? Is that their shtick?
Oh, yeah. So the idea was the kind of creator of the anti-folk scene, this guy Latch, had a really punk rock aesthetic, and he had tried to play a few songs around the West Village. It's like Lower East Side and then the West Side, right? And there was all these kind of really cliquey folk communities that heard his music and were like, no, it's not really a good fit for us. Thanks, but no thanks. Wow. And so he said, well, if that's what folk is, then I'm anti-folk. And I'm going to just do my own thing. Anybody and everybody should be able to play how they want to, And just because it all has an acoustic guitar and it's a box of wood and 6 strings, it shouldn't, that should be the one uniting characteristic. It shouldn't be like having to fit into a certain box.
I think we can relate to that.
Yeah, definitely.
I would not say that the voice in the pen is anti-folk, but it is definitely on the inclusive side, because we do a little bit of everything from hip-hop and rap artists to spoken word. We've seen a lot of different things come across the stage. Yeah. But the irony of having an anti-folk movement in the Lower East Side is not lost on me. One of my main important things to do last time that we were in the city was to walk by one of Dylan's residences. So
awesome.
You got to do it. They're a little different now than they
a little
were.
Different. Oh, indeed. Yeah, the Sidewalk Cafe that was once there is no longer. Let's see, the Raven, which was another venue where a lot of the music was being played out of, I think, burned down. And, it's such a case with a lot of music venues. They're gone, just they can't afford to stay open, especially the last few years. And so, I've grown out of that feeling that I don't belong phase in my life. I'm just kind of now embracing, where I am and who I am. And it's great. I think it's, you get kind of, as you continue to do music, it's kind of funny how sometimes people come up to you, and I don't know if you get this, like, oh, are you still doing your music thing? Like, yeah, it's kind of like, I always found that question kind of, I have to conceal not like laughing because it's like asking, oh, are you still breathing these days?
And from their perspective, it's almost like, oh, are you still selling the Pampered Chef thing stuff? Like,
yeah.
It's
and what do you do? Do you do other work? Do you do something else other than music?
Yeah, it's kind of a loaded question. So it's like, oh, so you're just doing it as a hobby, or it's like, and do you
get paid to do this?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how that works.
No, I don't make any money. I gig 5 times a week, but it's just for fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I play the music. I play the music for free. You have to pay me to carry the gear in, set it up, take it down, and carry it out. The music playing. So, what are you doing in music and with music now besides winning capos from G7?
Oh, shout out to G7 capo. Well, I have been trying to rebuild up my social media presence, which is very lacking. A couple of years ago, I just needed to have some break from the whole social media. I found it to be very draining. I ended up wasting way too much time doing nothing at all creative on it, getting caught up in like the Facebook rants and streams and doom scrolling, and I just needed a break. So I just actually canceled all of my accounts at the time. I was like, I'm done. I don't need this. And I did an experiment, actually. This is very interesting. Because I know a lot of fellow songwriters out there are always being pushed to, promote your songs, get it out on the social medias, and so you can get more people to come to your show. So living in the city as long as I did, I was like, I think I can get the same amount of people to come to my show without any social media presence. And it basically was the same amount of turnout. It was still like the same 20-something people that were there, So I found it interesting that, so much of this is just this illusion. Like, you have to have this huge presence. And then what made me go back was I got a gig that I had really wanted for a long time. It was part of John Platt's On Your Radar show at Rockwood Music Hall. And John Platt, who's with WFUV, who's like the best radio station for all grassroots acoustic music in New York City. And so for me, it was a really ample opportunity to play in a room with some really cool people. And so the promoter for the show said, "Oh, I was, getting the word out about the show, and I can't find your Facebook page."
I know.
And so I said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get on that right away." I had to, shut it off for a minute, and so I had to basically, long story short, I had to make create a new Facebook account, like Linda Draper 2 or whatever, and then I started up my Instagram page again and got my YouTube channel going. So this past year or two, really, kind of on the tail end of the pandemic, I have been working with my husband, who is my kind of partner in crime for South 40 Records, my record label, where I put out my last album that was also recorded during the pandemic, and building up my social media presence, getting more videos, especially on YouTube, and just doing it for the fun of it again. Since I'm still kind of learning places to play around here locally that I still need to find some more venues and opportunities for. Until then, I've been having just fun creating music in my own little office, South 40 Records homestead, and it's been great,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So creating music, and this is something we love to dive into, is what is your writing practice? Like, how do you approach writing songs? Is it different every time, or is there like a method that works consistently for you? And how do you approach that?
That's a good question. I think that, I will be consistently doing one thing for a while, and then I just like to change it up to see. So sometimes I'll have ideas for a lyric or two that I'll jot down so I don't forget it. And it might make its way into a song, but usually it's just really, I'm finding these days, just allowing myself the space and the time to contemplate, to just be present and not expect anything to happen, and just, pick up the guitar again like it was the first time, like it was when I was 14 and I was just curious about what could happen. And so for me now, it's been really just allowing myself the time and the place, like having the space to do it, which is sometimes the most challenging part, is finding the time these days.
Adulting is not, it doesn't work well with adulting. It's like,
Yeah. So I'm like, sleep, so it's always that trade-off. But that's how you're living the dream, I guess, right?
I remember a B.B. King quote that said, "The reason I am where I am today is because when everybody else was sleeping, I was practicing scales."
Oh, absolutely. That's so true.
Yes.
A little, sleep deprivation could be a very good thing.
I think we're meant to be tired sometimes and hungry sometimes and, thirsty sometimes, and it's all
and
okay.
A lot of musicians are late night people.
Yeah.
I'm discovering more and more. I mean, I'm one. But
You were a night owl.
I'm a night owl. It's regular for me to be up at 2 or 3 in the morning.
And time just goes by so fast when you do get into. So once that space happens, and then something just unlocks. You're able to really just get on that wave of whatever it is. It's usually, for me, it's a chord progression that you almost like hear, like the melody kind of going with it, flowing with it, and then it's just having fun. It's like being in a sandbox when you're a kid, just playing.
Yeah.
And so I try to just remember that part.
I used to say when I was, I know when we talked to Sam earlier, he was talking about, just listening to it and then singing like nonsensical words and then playing it back. And like, I've done that with a song of mine where I'll just put it in my ears and I'm like, what do I want to come out like after this? So it's like, play it over and over and over and over and over.
Oh yeah.
And then it kind of like releases somehow a little something, and it's like, I used to call writing songs a little bit like jogging it out, so to speak. And like, and I think that you reminded me when you were saying that about like the chord progression and then like playing it over and over, and then something just kind of like, oh, there are the words.
Yep.
And then you get maybe one lyric or one line, and then it'll be like playing that and singing that over and over and over again till it's like, well, where is this going now? It's kind of like you're envisioning the sound. And so it's like, oh yeah, now it's supposed to go here. Well, now I think it's, what are the words saying? Like, where does the melody curve go with like that to bring it out? And that's the fun part. That's the part that never gets old.
Mm-hmm. Every song's a journey.
Yeah.
Somebody should probably write a song about that.
Yeah.
But it reminds me a lot of Jackson Browne. I think he had a very similar writing method where he would find a chord progression he liked. He'd play it 20 or 30 times and then start vocalizing. And if he got a verse or a lyric, it was a matter of singing each component or playing each component 20 or 30 times before he could really move on to the next thing. And we were talking to Sam Hatch on the podcast, and he was expressing, and I really like this, but he was expressing a very personal story, but about a relative of his that was a musician and also had Alzheimer's, and how the music was the last thing to go. And it was also the one thing that would bring that person back to lucidity for a little while. And it makes sense, because to ingrain, like I think over time you become the instrument. It's not just that you're playing an instrument, but you are the instrument, your voice, the words, the music, all of it together. But you have to do a lot of work. It's a lot of time to ingrain that into your body and into your mind, into the neural pathways. Yeah. So I can totally relate to that. But I also feel the pressure behind that too, because it's like sometimes you'll start writing and then you're like, I have to finish this song, or why are you wasting time doing, like, all the thoughts start coming in. It's like, how do I block those out so that I can kind of be a conduit, I guess, in a way. Is just sort of what it feels like. Because I write stuff sometimes, I'm like, that did not come from C.B. Johnson. That came straight out of the ether. I cannot write that well, but I'm grateful that it, got out of my pen or out of my thumbs into my phone.
That's so true. It is. It feels like you feel like a conduit. You feel just kind of like this antenna picking up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a great part too. Also going back and just once it's out there, like for me, I'll also sometimes turn into an over revisionist. So that's the other challenge, that it's like, well, when is it done?
Is it ever really? Is it ever done?
There's some songs that come out now that I wrote like 20 years ago that I'm like, oh darn, I got to re-record this now. Like,
yeah.
I think that's so true though. I mean, like, I have to, like, music is all such personal taste, but like one of the things for me is I don't like going to concerts and hearing it exactly like it is on the album. I want to hear what the artist is expressing that day.
Right.
And whether it's how they're feeling or their mood, or maybe they were sick, or maybe they're really up and they're really putting a lot of different energy into the song. And so for me, I think that's an important component. Like, recording is just like a little snapshot of this is where I was with this song when I recorded it. Yeah. And sometimes it's really easy to get tied to that in a negative or positive way, either one.
Yeah, I can't, like, I can think of so many times that I've heard a band or musician's song for the first time live, and then I get it on the album, and I'm like, oh, I liked how it was the night I heard it for the first time, and it doesn't sound like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you just want to hear that live recording,
And that's one of the cool things about the songwriter community, too, is hearing so many different takes as songwriters cover other musicians, right? So I like it when somebody takes a song and really makes it their own. I think there's valuable music lesson in, like, covering it as close to the album as you can, because you're learning in that process. But when you really make it your own, I've heard songwriters do songs and I'm like, oh my God, that was an amazing song. Did you write that? And they're like, no, dude, that's so-and-so. And I'm like, oh.
You did that to me once. You were like, I was playing it for Mental, and I played a Brandi Carlile song, and you were like watching me, and I could see in your face that you were like, oh gosh, this song. And then you came up to me afterwards, you were like, that song was amazing. Did you write that? And I was like, no. I wish that I wrote it. It was every time I hear that song by Brandi Carlile.
Oh, I love Brandi Carlile. Well, that's the thing. When you really are able to embody it and make it your own, where the listener can't even quite tell, you've done a good job too. Right?
Absolutely.
It's it is a fine line though, because sometimes you're like, okay, guys, that's like not even close to, it's a fine line. But that's something I've noticed about the differences in the music scenes coming from New York to North Carolina. There are so many amazing songwriters that cover other amazing songwriters. Like saying cover band just doesn't seem to do it justice. Like it's really people taking it to heart and embodying these songs. And y'all got some stamina too. Like one thing that's different, that's really the key difference is in New York, when I play a gig, usually speaking, it's about a 45-minute to an hour set.
Yes, please.
Wow.
And
I could do 4 of those in one day.
I heard that's the way in LA too.
Yeah.
That it's like an hour set.
But it's more focused on original music.
Yes, it's usually all original music, and so that's and so it's the energy you put into less amount of time is very different.
Yes.
So like the majority of shows around here, I played a gig at Peace and Kava a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, 2 hours, and I was like 2 hours the whole time?
Yeah.
I think I got 2 hours worth of music for sure, but I have to approach this differently because I can't just
right.
I'll need to sit down eventually. I'm getting, it's a different, it's a different kind of vibe. And but the cover, the musicians covering other different like genres of music, and it could be like top 40, it could be like classic rock, it could be the old folk standards that I've heard. I am just so blown away by, and for me, that's how I still feel like maybe it's my old. Tracing back to my roots of feeling like I don't fit in. Like I don't have, I do more of my own stuff. So I'm not really quite sure where there's so many opportunities to do that. And I'm still exploring and learning.
I mean, I think you're tapping into a huge conversation that goes on all the time in the music community in Wilmington, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a venue conversation where are you as the venue hiring me to entertain your guests and, essentially be background music, which is fine.
Right.
Or are you hiring me because you want me to perform original music and drive traffic to your venue? Because the two are completely different things. If I'm playing live at Ted's, I'm going to do everything I can to get 20, 30, 40 people there because it's at the door, it's my music.
Absolutely.
But if you want me to come in and play 4 hours of covers while you enjoy your martinis, that's a different deal. And there's some weird pressure that goes on specifically in this town. And I think ties into this around people spending a bunch of money to renovate or build a restaurant or a bar. And then they're like, well, let me get the popular musicians to play that are playing 4 or 5 nights a week and go, you need to bring everybody that you can. Like, I reserve that. It's like, how you were able to drive as much traffic to your shows via text message, basically, because it's about relationships. And I'm not going to expend my if you put $1.5 million into your bar and you can't figure out how to make money and hire me to entertain me, you can probably think about something else. There's a different way to approach this.
Yes, absoltely.
So, I think there's a
it's a two-way street.
It needs
to be a reciprocal thing, and it's the same challenges that I came across in New York City was that there was a big expectation to have this big draw, and also to promote the entire thing yourself. And then if the venue isn't collaborating with you to do that, then it's tricky to make that happen, especially if it's like, Tuesday night at 7 o'clock or something, So I think it's worthwhile to have the conversation if you are able to, with the business owners of the establishment to see that, we're on the same wavelength of expectations. And if they really want it to be a music venue that caters and fosters a music scene in a community, then they need to, step up and help establish that, be it providing your own sound system so the songwriter isn't schlepping their gear and having to set up for an hour. Be it like arranging like a cover thing where it's like, okay, if you can bring in 20 people, then you get, this in addition to what whatever the payment that you'll be receiving. That would be ideal because then
and
everybody's
it's cool because there are some places that are now doing that.
That's
Place
so cool.
in Bottles is one of those places. They'll charge like a $5 cover, and then they've got their own sound system, and so they are fostering kind of what we're talking about.
The Place and Bottles, huh? Mental notes.
Yep, it's called The Place.
It's in Bottles.
Oh, in Bottles.
But it's the Place,
Gotcha.
and it's a nice stage. It's a nice room.
Cool.
And we're fortunate in Wilmington to have a couple spaces like that, to have Live at Ted's, to have The Place.
Right.
And we're grateful for that.
Oh yeah, I've heard great things about Live at Ted's.
Oh.
You guys do the voice and pen there.
Yeah, first Wednesday of each month.
Awesome,
Yeah, you would love playing Live at Ted's.
Yes, you would.
That would be. I feel like that would be right up your alley.
I would love
That would
to.
be a perfect venue for you.
And I know this past year I've been kind of settling in, and not to talk about what I do for work, but it's been going through kind of a transition. I work in nonprofit, and they've been merging with another nonprofit, and such is the case. My schedule's been a little flip-floppy all over the place, even though I have the luxury of working remote, so I really can't complain. The hours have been a little bit stretched outside my normal parameters, but I do see the light at the end of the tunnel with the merger finally kind of settling in and some key staffing vacancies starting to get filled. Not to bore you with the details,
I cannot imagine. I work in nonprofit, and I
yeah.
cannot imagine trying to merge two nonprofits.
Oh God! In New York City, that that primarily focus on homeless outreach and social services.
Yeah, holy smokes.
Yeah, so we're definitely keeping busy.
We'll chat another time about Cucaloris, the film festival that I work at.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Separate conversation. But,
yeah.
You know, that something that you said in there sort of brings me full circle to a comment that you made earlier, and I want to chat with you about before you play some songs for us. But, you know, people asking you, you know, are you still doing the music thing? You know, is that still happening in your life? And it's interesting because I think as musicians, when you decide that you're going to like, okay, I'm going to take this seriously, then there's a switch that sort of gets flipped. And like a lot of people, they go to their work and they do their thing so that they can have this sort of specific family life, or they can go on a certain number of vacations, or they can have a certain kind of car. And what I think at least happened for me is it's like everything else in my life became about earning enough income to support me doing music. You know, so it's sort of like you almost want to flip the question back to them and be like, so are you still doing the vacation thing? Are you still, you know, I mean, are you still like messing around with going to the beach in the summer and stuff? You know, because I think it's about, you know, like priorities and what you do.
Still doing the sleeping thing?
Yeah, like you said, breathing. Earlier. Yeah. Are you still breathing? You know. Yeah.
So it's interesting the different perspectives that we have on the world, but like it's for me, it's there's not much I wouldn't do to support myself continuing to play music.
Yeah.
We won't talk about what those things are. Well, thank you for joining us. You ready to play some music?
Oh, I so am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's wonderful to talk to you. I'm grateful to have Linda Draper on the Voice in the Pen podcast.
I feel like these
today.
are never long enough to like ask all the things you want to ask.
Which is why we need to have you back. You know,
love to anytime.
That would be good. Awesome. Thank you. Well, we're going to flip the room over and get things changed up.
All the days we used to chase around the rolling sun seem to be a lifetime ago now. And everything that once has been has never quite become as important to us as it has right now. History repeats herself just like she always does. Her old man time never listens. Talk is cheap, still they keep speaking in their crooked tongues, trying to sell me the idea that we're all in this together. I beg to differ, I beg to differ. We were never all in this together. There is no tether, nor was there ever, 'cause we were never all in this together. I was on the 8 train on the day the towers fell, just about a lifetime ago now. And what was really happening, I couldn't even tell. I still have problems explaining it now. History repeats herself just like her mother nature. Her father in time never listens. Her talk is cheap, still they keep squeaking like a broken wheel, trying to make me a deal. They say we're all in this together. I beg to differ, I beg to differ. We were never all in this together. There is no tether, nor was there ever, 'cause we were never all in this together. They will float away at the first chance they get for ease. looking for some easier weather. Yeah, easier weather. I beg to differ, I beg to differ. We were never all in this together. There is no tether, nor was there ever, 'cause we were never all in this together. All the days we used to chase around the rolling sun seem to be a lifetime ago now. So that was called Tether, and this next one I'm going to play is called Hollow. Nothing more than your shadow. Can you see it now? Can you see it now? Get it out of your system before you grow cold and numb. Left, right, march to the beat of the monotonous humdrum. Get it out of your system. Trace the constellation of freckles in your sunburned skin, and I face the harshest consequences from my lack of action. Stick with me, you'll see it unfold again. In the wind, in the hail, in the belly of the whale, everybody needs a little reaction. Can you feel it now? Or can you feel it now? Get it out of your system before you grow cold and numb. Left, right, march to the beat of the monotonous humdrum. Get it out of your system. Ooh. Left, right, march to the beat of the monotonous humdrum. Get it out of your system.